we can get started. Hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. Cool. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for joining with me. Talk about automation rules today and to see how to build efficient marketing operations with automations. So a little bit about me. My name is Timut Amarakon, and I'm working at WSO2. So my main focus is on web automation and marketing automation. And we've been using Pardot for close to 5 years, I would say. So in this session, based on the experience on Pardot, we are going to talk about the automations and automation rules in Pardot. And in addition, we are going to cover when and where you can use these automation rules, and how to create the automation rules and how it works, and some of the use cases from our experience and some best practices we have observed. Okay, do we need automations or can we just do it manually? So think about a scenario like this. You have 3 prospect lists in your Pardot. One is for product downloads, another one for event attendees, and another one for case study downloads. So if you want to select the prospects who has done all these 3 activities, how do you do it manually? You will have to export the lists, and then you have to import it to a spreadsheet and do a list match, and then create the final list. And then you can use that to send a mailer, or maybe you can add a tag and re-import it to Pardot, or maybe you can sync it with the CRM campaign to update the statuses. So there are like multiple steps you have to do manually. And if you want to do it for the future prospects, you have to repeat all these steps manually to the future leads as well. So if you automate this process, you can run this with minimal human assistance. And the automation process will be really time effective and a reliable way to execute your marketing operations. So there are a couple of ways you can do automation in Pardot: completion actions, segmentation, and automation rules, dynamic lists. So based on your automation trigger, you can select what to use and when to use it. For an example, let's say if you want to trigger your automation based on your marketing assets like form handlers, when someone clicks on a link, when someone opens an email, then you can use completion action to automate those things. If not, if your automation is custom rule based, it triggers on rules, then you can see whether it's just a one-time action. If it's a one-time process, you can use segmentation rule to create that automation. If it's not a one-time action, then you can see what's the output you want to from this automation. If it's an automatically updating list, then you can select the dynamic list option. If not, if you want to do more like prospect operations, then you can choose automation rules. So when you think about automation rules, it's like you telling Pardot to select some of the prospects based on some conditions. So if you look at this example I selected here, so I'm going to select the VP in my prospect list, and then increase the score by some value. So here, when I'm creating the automation rules, I have to tell Pardot, show me the prospects whose job title which is a default field, contains the value VP, or the job title value contains the value vice president, and I need to validate either of these roles. So I'm going to use the condition O. So in this automation context, you have to select the match type as match any to support the O condition. Or if you want to select or validate all the conditions with the AND parameter, then you have to select the match type as match all. So what it will do is this will go through your prospects and see whose job title contains these values, and give you this list. And for that, you can apply these actions as adjust the prospect score by 50 and then add them to the list. So what happens in the background? So when you create an automation rule and when you save it, it will save in the post state. It's not running right away. It will be saved in the post state, and you have to resume it to run it. So once you resume it, it will go through all the prospects in your Pardot instance. Like if you have like 100,000 prospects, it will go through all the prospects. And for an example, it will go through the first prospect, match your rules, and if it's matching, then it will apply the actions. So that prospect will be a matched prospect, and it will move to the second one, and it will validate that prospect with your rules you have defined. If it's not a match, then there's nothing to do, no need to apply actions, and then so on. It will go through all your prospects and validate everyone. And after going through each and every record, it will listen to the prospect updates and the new leads. For an example, if you combine this with the previous slide example, if you get a new lead, if a new lead comes to your Pardot with the title value vice president, and if you have this role running, it will listen to the new leads, and since that new lead has the title vice president, it will apply the actions. And similarly, if an existing lead or existing prospect update its title value as vice president or VP, it will then again apply these rules, apply these actions. One thing to remember here is in the automation rules, it won't match the prospects more than once. It will only match a prospect on one time. But what if you want to match the same prospect multiple times? There's an option called repeat rules. So when you're creating the automation rule, there's another section at the top of the rules. It says where you can name your rule. You can select this option to repeat your rule. And once you select it, what happens is it will match the prospects more than once. So earlier, it matched the prospect only once, but here it will match the prospects more than once and apply the actions more than once. And you can define the interval, like number of days to repeat it, and also you can define a limit to match. Like if you want to match the same prospect 5 times, you can define it here. So similarly, in the repeat rules also, once you resume it, it will go through your prospects, check whether they are matching, and if they are matching, they will apply the actions and go through your prospects. And once it ends the cycle, it will again listen to the new leads and the changes of the existing leads, plus it will revisit the matched prospects based on that given number of days you define. And it will if it matches for the second time also, it will apply the actions again. So let's say you have defined in the actions to send a lead alert or send an email. So in the first time, if it matches, it will send the lead alert. And the second time, if the prospect is still a match, it will send the lead alert again. Okay, so here I have listed the capabilities you can get from automation rules. I'm not going to go through one by one, but I will cover some of these in the use cases section. But this is how you can match your prospects in your instance. Like you can match them based on their profile value, like their first name, last name, and even the custom field values, like the ones you create. And maybe based on the activities, you can match them like the form handlers, form submissions, landing pages, email opens, and also the properties like their scores, grades, and their time. And also the if you talk about the actions, these are the things you can do to those prospects you match from the rules. And also I'll cover some of these in the use case section. So this is I'm going to cover some of the use cases and the scenarios we have came through so far when using automation rules. And I'm going to cover some from the scoring and updating the member statuses and updating the fields and some spam filtering and some data cleanup exercises. Okay, the first one, custom scoring setup. You know that Pardot has its own default scoring mechanism, but in case if you want to maintain a secondary score just to qualify some leads based on the activities, you can use automation rules. So here, what I'm going to do is based on the form submission actions, I'm going to validate some prospects and see whether that prospect is an architect, and then I'm going to increase or add a custom score as 20. So before starting, you need to create a prospect field, a custom field, because that's the field you are going to store this score, and it should be a numeric value because it's a score and it's a number. And you can come and create the automation rules now. So here you can tell Pardot select the prospects who has done this form submission 1 plus the form submission 2 and check their job title contains the value architect. So here it's a match all condition because we need to validate all these rules, like we need to see whether the prospect has done all these activities. So it's an AND condition. So it's a match all here. And in the actions part, you can use the value increment prospect field value. When you select this action label, it will show you in the next dropdown, it will show you all the numeric fields you have in Pardot. And from that, you can select the field you created here, and you can enter the score you want to add for these people. Now, in our case, we have used this kind of a scenario for validate some of the prospects we get from third-party integrations. And based on the activities and the content they interacted on the third party, we scored them. And we didn't want to tamper with the default score. So that's why we created the additional score. And based on that, we categorized those third-party system prospects, and we did some campaigns to nurture them. And so this is something similar, but here we are reducing the score based on the inactivity of the lead, and we are using the repeat rule here. So first, we are going to select a set of users who have been inactive for a month. So here, what we are going to use is a prospect time rule. And when you select that, you will see some options. And from that, you can select the last activity days and see whether it's greater than 30. That means whether they haven't done any activity for the past 30 days. And then we are going to have another rule to say whether this prospect already have a score, because we don't need to give them minus scores because we are going to reduce their score here. And in the actions, we can say adjust prospect score by -10. Now the additional part is you enable the repeat rule and tell Pardot go back and check the matched prospects every 30 days. And if they still haven't done anything for the past 30 days, then reduce another 10 from the score. So this will keep checking the prospects and reducing the score gradually. Okay, the next one is updating the member status. So let's say you have done an external event and you are getting the attendee report as a CSV, and now you need to update that to Salesforce and update the campaign member status as attended. And in addition, you need to allocate these leads into a lead queue. Let's say how you can use automation rules to do this. So first, you need to import this attendee list into Pardot and store them in a list. And the other step is you need to make sure that your CRM campaign has the correct status to map them. like in this case, attended. So you come to create the automation rule, and you check the list and see, select the list you have imported. And then in the actions part, you can say first assign the prospects to queue. You can see that in this screenshot. And you once you select that, you will see all the queues you have. Or if you want to add these leads in to a user, you can say assign prospects to user and then select the correct user. And the next action, you can say add to CRM campaign. So when you select this, in the next dropdown, you will see all the CRM campaigns connected with your Pardot, and you can select the relevant campaign. And when you select that, in the next dropdown, you will see the member status values associated with that campaign, and you can select the correct status, and then you can run this rule. Okay, the next one is updating prospect field values, and do this in bulk. Yes, you can do this by using a list import in Pardot, but if you want to do this based on some conditions and rules, and if you want to do this for future leads, I think automation rule is the best choice to do that. So here, the use case is, let's say we need to add the region value for our prospects, and we need to fill that based on their country. So let's say if the prospect's country is Spain, France, or Ireland, we need to fill the region as EU. And so in the automation section, you can tell Pardot, okay, first check whether the region field is empty, and see whether this prospect's country contains the values Spain or France or Ireland. Now you will notice here that I have used a semicolon to separate the parameters. So this is a way you can define the OR conditions, multiple OR conditions, which associate with a single field. Like I could have used multiple country fields to say, okay, match the country and see whether it contains Spain, and another rule to say match the country and check whether it contains France, and so on. And here you are using that OR condition with AND condition, so you will have to use the rule group option here to combine AND conditions and OR conditions. But instead of that, to simplify this rule, you can use the semicolons and separate your parameters. Okay, the rule section is done, and in the actions you can say change prospect custom field, because that region is a custom field, and set that to EU. And the next one, the spam records. I'm sure if you are managing web forms, this is inevitable. You will get spam submissions. And also you can control this from the web form end by using maybe reCAPTCHA. But if you want to stop syncing spam alerts based on the keywords with the CRM campaign, you can do that using automation rules. Let's say you know the keywords you are getting, and you can match that using the automation rules here. So if you know the parameters you are getting for the email, like these sample emails or the scanned emails, like the automatic submissions, you can match those with semicolon. And also you can check your text field parameters, like the description here, whether it contains the keywords, and you can add multiple rules here. And then in the actions, you can say, do not sync these leads with CRM. That means you are not going to sync these submissions with the CRM. And if you want to generate a lead alert, you can notify a user. Or if you want to store these spam leads in a separate list, you can do that as well. Now there's something here, if you want to track your forms or monitor your form submissions real time, there's an option in automation rule to say real-time execution. So as and when someone submits the form, it will execute, or it will trigger this automation rule. So that's something you can use in this scenario. Okay, the last use case here is the data cleanup. And here is something we have experienced and we have come through. Here, what we are doing is, let's say you have mistakenly imported a set of leads with the first name value null, the string null. For an example, let's say this is the that CSV you got from the external event, and you are importing this to your Pardot instance. And now when you are importing it mistakenly, the first name is marked as null, the string value. And when after you import it, this leads first name will be filled as null. And if it's connected with Salesforce, the Salesforce value will also get updated as null. So you can't clear this value only in Pardot because it will sync back from Salesforce if it's connected. And even if you clear it from Salesforce, it will sync it back from Pardot because regardless of your sync priority, it will sync from the non-empty end to the empty end. So here, one option you can use to solve this is disable your Pardot Salesforce connector. Now, in our case, we didn't want to do that because we have form submissions with SLAs. You need to sync those as soon as possible. So we didn't want to have a downtime. So we used Pardot automation rules. So first, we created a list with the prospects. So I recommend doing that rather than doing a field match like prospect default field first name equals null. Just create a prospect list because you might need to refer to this list later on. And in the actions, you can say do not sync these leads with CRM, and then you can clear the prospect field value first name. Now, by running the do not sync with CRM, you are cutting down the connection with this, the connection between Salesforce and the Pardot only for these set of leads, not all the prospects, but only for these set of prospects. And now you can clear the first name field in Pardot using the automation rule. And when you run this, that will get cleared. And then you can go to the Salesforce end and maybe using a data loader, you can bulk update the same list of prospects or leads and clear the first name in the Salesforce end as well. So now both your systems are cleaned, and now you can re-enable the sync. To re-enable the sync, now you can refer that list again. That's why I said keep them in the list, because now you can't match by the first name because you have cleared that. And you give that list here as the rule, and the actions you can use the action label allow deleted CRM lead to recreate from Pardot. Now this will re-enable the sync. Now you didn't have any downtime for all of your prospects, but just for these set of prospects, and you cleared the field name value. Okay, now there are a few things you need to keep in mind when you're running or using automation rules. One thing is the preview option. So after you save your automation rule, it will be saved in the post state. And before resuming your rule, make it a habit that you run a preview and validate your rules. So when you preview it, you will see a sample of the prospects you are going to apply those actions for. So by this, you won't be targeting or apply the actions to a wrong set of prospects. So this is a good habit to have to run a preview. And also, even before running preview, go through your rules manually and see whether you have used match any instead of match all, or whether you have selected the proper list. Because when you are running automation rules, it utilizes your system resources. Now I'm talking about like 50, 60 automation rules in your system. If they keep running, it will utilize your system resources. So before running it, just make sure that you are targeting the proper set of prospects. And also, unless you pause your automation rule or delete your automation rule, it will keep running. So if you have like, again, 50, 60 automation rules running, that can affect your performance, system performance. So set up an inactive automation alert. So you can go and enable that from your settings and monitor the inactive rules, inactive automation rules, and clear them out. Like you can delete or pause them without just let it running and affect your system performance. And also we discussed this before, choose the correct automation method, because in some accounts there's a quota limit as 100, and some accounts I think it's 150. So you might be utilizing your quota if you are not choosing the correct automation method. So that's another best practice. And also automation rules change your data. Now you have seen that it can write like overwrite your field values even in Pardot and also in Salesforce. So it might be hard to revert unless you have the original data set, which you can import again. So if you have any doubt, take a sample data set, maybe the email addresses of your team members, and run a sample test, run a test and see whether the actions are properly applied. It might take like maybe more than 1 day if you are going to use the repeat tool, but better safe than sorry. It's a safety measure. And the last but not least, use the real-time option with a caution, because like I said, if you enable the real-time, it will monitor the form submission actions or like completion actions in real time. So if you submit a form, it will trigger this automation rule. So if you have like 30, 40 of the real-time automations, that can slow down the form submission process. So when you are using the real-time option, be careful with that. Okay, so I think our time is up, and that brings to the end of our session. And if you have any questions, okay, let me check. Yeah, I think there are a few questions. Maybe I can come back and answer these because we are out of time. But you can get in touch with me if you have any questions, and if you want to check anything further, you can keep in touch with me. I have my social media details here, and I'll try to answer the questions once the session is over, so you can come back and check the answers as well. So yeah, thanks everyone who joined my session. I really appreciate it. Hope you will have a good time at ParDreamin the rest of the day. Thank you very much.